I'm Darren Levine, and in the next few minutes I'm going to make you an expert on buying a super warm winter jacket. As you can see, I own a bunch of jackets, and there's a few of my wife's over there, and each one suits a different situation, but one to get out of the way is fashion. I love a jacket that looks great, but looks are going to have to take a backseat to overall warmth and functionality. So if you're looking for the trendiest jacket, sorry, not here. First up, the fill. There's basically two camps, down and synthetics. And despite some great advances in synthetic insulation, down is still the champ in many ways. Synthetics come in a wide variety and you'll see a lot of marketing lingo. But to simplify it for you, the big advantage of synthetics over down is moisture resistance. Untreated wet down is terrible, wet synthetic is no problemo. However, down still holds the crown in overall weight, compactability, and warmth. This of course may change, but suffice it to say, down is always a solid choice if the moisture issue is addressed. A lot of super light down jackets lack good waterproofing, so look for products that have been treated with DWR or Durable Water Repellent. This may be applied to the shell of the jacket, but look for products where the down itself is treated. Moisture is mostly a non-issue for jackets with a thicker waterproof shell, but don't forget that you may also release sweat into the inside of the jacket, but we'll talk about more of this in a bit. There's some impressive performing thin synthetics such as Thinsulate, but those are best for moderate activity, not maximum heat retention. So what you want for maximum heat is the marshmallow, the portable house. The more ridiculous you look, the more comfortable you're likely gonna be. So when navigating the jacket rack, there is one metric jacket makers give us, which is called fill power. This is describing the quality of the down, not the amount. So if you're okay with the price premium, it is good to get a high fill power, but I wouldn't go too crazy here because it is not the only insulation factor. Just try and stick to 550 or above. On tags, you'll also see mentioned a down to feather ratio, and here I would aim for 70% down or greater. Okay, so we have the quality of the down, but what about the amount? Here's where it just makes no sense. There's no widespread use for fill amount, typically noted in grams. Some jacket makers do post them, but many do not. I have seen some hilariously thin down jackets being sold at big box stores for cheap. It doesn't matter that it's down if it's no fluffier than a tissue. Look for jackets which look like they just overate for Thanksgiving. So back to moisture for a second, because there's one big factor we didn't go over: activity. We've been talking about the warmest jackets, but there could be a problem with that if you plan on doing more than just walking or standing around. The warmest jackets typically don't breathe very well, and all of a sudden you're sweating in sub-freezing temperatures. I've had to take off my parka in a Canada winter because I was super overheated. So for the purposes of what we're talking about today, we're in the low activity camp. Like you've got to stand in line at the DMV outside or just walking the dog. If you plan on doing any activity such as shoveling snow or hiking, you'll likely want a less heavy jacket with a focus on breathability and moisture control. Now onto function, which has a lot to do with the style of jacket. The baffle style has become really widespread, and it's pretty easy to spot which is the warmer jacket. The smaller the baffle, the less the fill, the less the heat retention. But of course, keeping in mind the fill power and down to feather ratio. Beware though that a lot of these super light jackets lack moisture control, and even if they have a coating, it can wear off and occasionally you'll need to reapply. My favorite portable house is the Parka. It's big, it's beautiful, it keeps more of you warm because it typically extends below the waistline, and keeping those thighs warm makes a huge difference. Now these days you'll see a wide variety of styles and variations in jackets, but let's identify just a few important features to look out for in any style. A hood. This is a must if we're talking about maximum warmth. Lots of jackets have removable hoods to suit different situations, but I tend to grab a different jacket altogether if it's not cold enough for a hood. Hoods can also have an extension called snorkels, helping to further close your face off from the cold. These snorkels typically are part of a fur. The function of a fur is to break up the wind, and they can do a really good job of it. Some jackets have removable furs for added versatility. Also look for a double zipper, which allows you to unzip from the bottom to allow for more leg movement in longer jackets. In the same vein, I prefer buttons over Velcro when possible because Velcro tends to snag on many fabrics and destroys them. A good thing to have are some sort of elastics or cinches on the hood, wrists, and waist, keeping the wind out. Also make sure it has what's called a storm flap, which is a bit of fabric which prevents wind from entering through the zipper. A big consideration for many are pockets, and this is where I get frustrated with many jackets, because I can't fathom why they so often leave nearly no inside storage. On the one hand, there's this lower cost Land's End jacket, which has what I think every jacket should have, just a thin bit of fabric making two really big inside belly pockets. But on nearly all of my pricier jackets, nearly the only inside pocket I get is the heart area phone size slot. Of course, it's all up to your personal preference. Lastly, and the big one for me, is the hand warmer pocket, because it was the biggest pain in the butt for me to find a functional one. And this brings us to my personal search for a portable house. I'm gonna talk about some brands, but I'm not here to make any endorsements. I see positives and negatives in each product based on my own personal needs, which may or may not match yours. So my criteria was a mid-priced Parka. I wasn't going to shell out for a Canada Goose jacket. I just don't personally see enough value in those. I went to Macy's, REI, Dick's, LL Bean, and several other stores and tried on every single Parka. And all other things considered, it really came down to the one critical feature, the position of the hand warmer pockets. See, I wanted a Parka, and since Parkas are typically longer, they typically are styled with really low pockets. And it's simply hilarious to try and use these unless you have really long arms. Some will then have these front open pockets, which are usable, but to me are just awkward. And if there's any rain or snow, it makes it easier for moisture to get into your hands. Then we have the chest pockets, which in too many cases are just way too high and are just uncomfortable to use. I thought I was in love with the LL Bean Baxter State Parka. I love the look, I love the feel, it seemed perfect until I tried the pockets. I just could not use it comfortably. And keep in mind, your mileage may vary because everyone's body and preference can be different. The Baxter State is a really well-liked jacket by many, so don't take my rejection as a condemnation. What I finally settled on was the North Face Mcmurdo 2 Parka. It has top hand warmer pockets, which are just low enough to be comfortable for my frame. It's not perfect. I wish the hood extended out a bit further, and the fur lets air through the button gaps. It also has a great feature if you have a small head, a built-in face mask, but I rarely use it because it's way too tight for my head. But all things considered, when I'm out walking the dog in sub-freezing temps and nothing else but a t-shirt or a thin long sleeve, I know I made the right choice. One last thing I want to bring up is layering, which is almost never a bad idea for many situations. But for many other situations, my preference is to be able to get my warmth in one big layer that comes off once I'm indoors. But once again, that's just my preference, and there are many other preferences and situations that will differ. So happy shopping, stay warm, and if you found this helpful, the subscribe button is around here somewhere. What? But you can't look at me.
Okay.
I just need you to look at the camera.
Oh, Jesus, just stop saying look at the camera.
That's not a jiggle, that's just weird. You're a disaster. You're an absolute disaster.